Noswaith dda. Good evening and a very warm welcome to everybody joining us virtually this evening at Hibby Quay. My name's Cath Smith and as chair of the board, it's my pleasure to be chairing this evening's panel discussion. Tonight's online event concludes a series of meetings which we've held across Wales to discuss the future funding rate mechanism for the red meat levy here in Wales, for which HCC has the duty of dispensing on behalf of levy payers for the development, promotion and marketing of red meat from Wales. Tonight, we'll be commencing with 3 short presentations from the senior management team at Hibby Cymru, commencing with Rachel Medley-Davis, who is Head of Supply Chain and Policy at Hibby Cymru, followed by Laura Pickup, Head of Strategic Marketing and Communications, and followed by John Parker, who is Head of Supply Chain and Sustainability. Translation for tonight's event is available throughout all of the presentations via the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen. So please use that if you wish to. And questions are very welcome throughout all of tonight's discussions and can be posed at any time in either English or Welsh via the Q&A button, which again you'll find at the bottom of your screen. However, before we do launch into presentations, we do look forward to a thoroughly enjoyable evening involving lots and lots of questions from yourself. And it's my pleasure to now introduce somebody who I'm sure is a very familiar face to you all, and that's our Chief Executive, Gwyn Howells, who will set the scene and the context around the framing of tonight's webinar. Gwyn, over to you.
Thank you, Cath. Good evening, everybody. Noswaith dda I chi gyd. Dwi'n mynd I wneud hwn yn Gymraeg. I'll be doing this particular piece in English. So, mae'r cyd-destun yma dwi'n rhoi fel rhagarweiniad I weddill yr cyflwyniadau. Yn bwysig iawn o ran yr hyn ni'n mynd I drafod heddi. Mae'r sector cig coch wrth gwrs yn bwysig iawn I ni yng Nghymru. Mae'n bwysig iawn i'r ffermydd unigol sydd yn cynhyrchu cigoen a chigeidion ac yn wir moch yng Nghymru. A wrth gwrs, nid yn unig i'r fferm unigol mae'r diwydiant yn bwysig, ond hefyd i'r diwydiant gwledig a'r economi wledig, ac hefyd I economi Cymru ben baladr. Felly, mae'r diwydiant yn un pwysig, mae'n strategol bwysig I Gymru, ac mae'n creu llawer iawn o waith a chyfoeth yn wir I Gymru. A felly, mae rhaid bod ni yn buddsoddi yn y diwydiant mwyaf bwysig sydd gyda ni yng Nghymru. Nawr te, I ni sôn am yr lefi a'r ardoll heno a'r dyfodol I ni'n edrych ar ei gyfer e. Fel falle cyd-destun sy'n bwysig iawn I nodi yn hermau y cefndir, mae pethau wedi newid wrth gwrs ers 2010 pan wnaethon ni ymgynghori ddiwetha ar y lefi, a cyn hynny yn 2001, felly mae yna 20 mlynedd a mwy wedi pasio ers i'r ddau ymgynghoriad yna ar godi'r lefi ddigwydd y tro diwetha. Felly 12 mlynedd yn amser hir iawn. Mae pethau wedi newid yn ddirfawr yn yr amser yna. Ac yn wir, sy'n ni wedi bod yn edrych yn y 6 mlynedd diwetha mae'r diwydiant wedi cael lawer o bryderon, lawer o argyfniadau. A wrth gwrs, mae'r rheini yn rhywbeth I ni wedi cyfarwyddo gyda ac yn gyffredin iawn i'r diwydiant cig coch. Os edrychwn ni nôl, dim ond tan hyd at 2016, oedd Brexit wrth gwrs, a referendum Brexit wedi golygu, wedi arwyddo newid mawr i'r diwydiant. A wrth gwrs, doth ni ben yn 2021 gyda y cytundeb a arwyddwyd rhwng Prydain a Undeb Ewropeaidd. Wrth gwrs, dyw Brexit ddim wedi gorffen. Mae yna lawer iawn i'w ddatrys eto, a mae'n bwysig iawn bod hynny yn digwydd gan bod y diwydiant cig coch yn benodol yng Nghymru yn ddibynnol iawn ar fasnach di-lyffethair gyda Ewrop. I ni'n gwerthfawrogi'r ffaith bod ni fasnach ddidoll ar hyn o bryd, a mae hynny yn rhywbeth i'w groesawu a'i drysori yn wir. Ond mae rhaid ni hefyd gyfaddau bydd na newidiadau yn hermau'r berthynas sydd gyda ni a Ewrop dros y blynyddoedd nesaf yma, a ni'n fawr obeithio bod yn gwleidyddion ni yn cytuno ac yn chwilio am gyfaddawd pan mae anghytundeb yn mynd i fod, achos mae'r masnach gyda yn marchnad mwyaf un i ni heblaw am Prydain i hunan yn bwysig tu hwnt, lle mae yna 500 miliwn o bobl yn gwerthfawrogi yn cynnyrch ni ers hanner canrif a mwy, ac yn sicr cigoen a chigeidion yn rhan anatod o'r masnach yna. Wrth gwrs, ers hynny wedyn 2021 amser rwyddwyd y cytundeb i ni wedi cael Covid, a rhywbeth sydd wedi bod yn fyd-eang, wedi taro gwledydd gan gynnwys Prydain yn eithriadol o galed. Ac nid unig y boblogaeth mae wedi taro'n galed iawn, hefyd y gadwyn gyflenwi ar hyd y byd, a ni wedi gweld llawer o newid yn hynny o beth. Yn wir, falle byddwn ni'n gweud, mae'r diwydiant cigoch wedi mynd trwy amser anodd iawn stod Covid i ddechrau, amser gofiwch chi fe ddoth Covid a'r cau lawr y cloi mawr yn 2020 yn mis Mawrth. Oedd yna banig ymysg y bobl oedd yn prynu cynnyrch o bob math, gan gynnwys cig, lle oedd angen pobl yn prynu mwy o mins a briw gig. Ac wrth gwrs oedd hynny yn sialens mawr y diwydiant, achos oedd dim balans i gael yn hermau yr carcas oedd yn cael ei werthu. A wrth gwrs, gallwn ni ddim yn cael gwerth allan o'r carcas drwy werthu briw gig yn unig. A wrth gwrs, yn hynny o beth, un caffeiliad a rhywbeth gwerthfawr iawn doedd allan o Covid yn hermau'r diwydiant a'r gadwyn gyflenwi yn Prydain. Oedd yna gydweithio agos iawn rhwng gwahanol adrannau o'r gadwyn gyflenwi, boed yn fanwerthwr, yn broseswyr, neu'n wir yn ffermwyr, lle tynnwyd at ei gilydd gan help bobl fel Levy Cymru i drial wneud yn saff bod y rhai oedd yn prynu'r cig yn y siopau, a wrth gwrs dim ond yn y siopau oedd modd prynu cig, bod yna amrywiaeth a storiang o doriadau i gael i brynu. Ac hyd yn dros yr degawdau diwetha, dwi'm yn cofio un sefyllfa gyffelib lle weithiodd y gadwyn gyflenwi mor agos at ei gilydd drwy addysgu rhai oedd yn prynu yn cwsmeriaid ni, bod na doriadau amgenach o gig i gael na dim ond mins, a weithiodd hynny'n dda iawn ar canlyniad hyn i gyd, oedd na gyda ni cwsmeriaid newydd sbon i gig coch o Gymru ac o Brydain. A wrth gwrs oedd hynny'n gaffeiliad mawr, a welon ni yr galw yn gryf iawn dros y cyfnod y 2-3 mlynedd. Wrth gwrs, mae tro wedi dod ar fyd ers hynny, wrth gwrs, a mae 'da ni her arall i gael nawr gyda rhyfel Ukraine a prysiau ynni, a prysiau tanwydd, a prysiau bwyd hefyd yn wir. A felly mae yna her arall i gael yn hermau costau i'r diwydiant nawr, lle mae y costau wedi cynyddu'n aruthrol dros y flwyddyn diwetha yma o ryw 20%, a wrth gwrs mae hwnna'n her anferthol, lle nad yw'r pris falle sydd wedi codi yn ddirfawr yn yr 2-3 mlynedd diwetha yma, nawr wedi codi yn sgil y costau ychwanegol, felly mae yna her arall i gael. Wrth gwrs, mae yna heriau arall i gael, wrth gwrs, gyda newid yn y gyfundrefn cymorth i ffermwyr yn sgil Brexit. Wrth gwrs, bydd ni bolisi newydd sbon yng Nghymru yn 2025. A mae hwnna'n rhywbeth fydd yn digwydd. Mae'n broses sydd yn mynd rhagddi ar hyn o bryd, ond wrth gwrs bach iawn o'r wybodaeth ar hyn o bryd. O ran beth yn union fydd y cynllun a faint fydd y taliadau yn ei sgilau. A wrth gwrs, un o'r pethau a gofidau mawr a pryder mawr i lot o'r ffermwyr a'r gadwyn gyflenwi yw beth fydd yr effaith hwnnw ar gynhyrchu bwyd yn y dyfodol. Gan chwilio diben y polisi fydd chwilio am fan canol rhwng cynhyrchu bwyd ar un llaw. Wneud yn saff bod ni'n wneud beth sydd angen i wneud i helpu yr agenda newid hinsawdd. Ac wrth gwrs heb anghofio sydd yn bwysig iawn i wneud yn saff bod y ddau beth soniais i amdano gynnau yn hefyd yn cyflawni bod ni gymdeithas sydd yn gynaladwy hefyd yn y dyfodol. Felly mae yna heriau i gael y polisi yna yn union fel mae diwydiant Cymru yn ei obeithio amdano ac yn ddibynnu ac yn gofyn amdano. So felly mae hwnna'n her gan bod ffarmwyo yn rhywbeth tymor hir iawn, dwi'n rhywbeth misol nac yn wythnosol, mae'n rhywbeth mae rhywun yn gynllunio fel busnesau yn hermau blynydde. A wrth gwrs mae cael blynydde o sicrwydd yn hermau polisi yn bwysig iawn. Cyn i fi ddod ar cyd-destun i ben, dwi'n credu bod un arall sydd wedi bod yn amlwg iawn yn newyddion yn ddiweddar iawn, wrth gwrs yn sgil Brexit eto, lle oedden ni yn yr Undeb Ewropeaidd, oedd da ni gytundebau masnach gyda gwledydd eraill y byd oedd yn rhywbeth oedd wedi cael ei gytuno gyda'r Undeb Ewropeaidd. Wrth gwrs, dyw hynny ddim bellach yn bod, a fel y gwyddoch chi, mae'r Deyrnas Unedig yn cytuno ar gytundebau gyda'r gwledydd ar draws y byd. Wrth gwrs, mae yna dda drwg allan yn ymwneud â'r cytundebau yma. Mae yna gyfleon yn sicr mewn marchnadoedd fel Japan a llawer i wlad yn yr dwyrain canol. Ond wrth gwrs mae yna heriau a mae yna ofidiau hefyd yn hermau rhai o'r cytundebau sydd wedi cael eu cytuno mewn egwyddor gyda gwledydd megis Seland Newydd ac Awstralia. Ac fel y gwyddoch chi, mae un o'r cyn-wedirogion y Llywodraeth San Steffan wedi lleisio barn yn ddiweddar iawn ar y ffaith nad yw'r cytundebau yna yn rhywbeth sydd yn ei fod yn werthfawr nag o les yn wir i'r diwydiant. A mae hwnna'n resyn ac mae'n fygythiad un cenedlaethau ni sydd i ddod, a felly mae hwnna'n her. Mae yna heriau wrth gwrs hefyd i ni i gadw'r masnach i fynd yn rhai o'r cyfleoedd newydd yma, fe ddaw yn sgil y cytundebau yma. A wrth gwrs, dyma ni'n troi at waith hybu cig yn hermau gwerthu'n cynnyrch ni o gigoen a chigeidion, cynnyrch clodwyw, llawn rhinweddau wrth gwrs, ac rhywbeth sydd mae'r brandiau i ni yn ei hybu yn rhywbeth sydd wedi ennill i tir a i cydnabyddiaeth ledled y byd erbyn hyn fel y brandiau mwyaf agorau mewn gwirionedd. Felly mae'r cyd-destun yn un dyrys iawn, ond mae'r gwaith hybu i Cymru yn bwysicach nag erioed, swn i'n teimlo, gyda gymaint o sialensau a bod angen corff i wasanaethu y diwydiant, eich diwydiant chi, os chi'n ffermwyr neu yn broseswyr ar gyfer y dyfodol, a wneud yn saff bod da ni ddiwydiant cynaladwy i gael yn hermau gweithgaredd economaidd, wneud yn saff bod ni'n wneud yn rhan o'r annewid hinsawdd, a wrth gwrs hefyd yr sialensau i gadw cymdeithas hyfyw yng nghefn gwlad. Felly fi'n credu bod gwaith hybu i Gymru yn cyffwrdd ar bob un o'r sialensau yna. A felly, beth ni eisiau gwneud dros yr munudau nesaf yma nawr yw cloriannu yr hyn dyn ni yn wedi wneud o ran gweithgaredd, a hefyd beth yr hyn gawn ni wneud yn y dyfodol. A wedyn, unwaith gawn ni'r gweithgareddau dros y munudau nesaf yma, fe ddau nôl a trafod y Levy gyda chi'n bellach o ran yr dyfodol a'r hyn sydd o dan sylw. Felly gyda hynny o eiriau o ragarweiniad mewn gwirionedd, dwi'n nawr yn mynd i rhedeg ffilm fer ar mater cynaladwyedd a'n gwaith ni yn y maes arbennig yma, maes sydd yn hynod o bwysig nawr, dim unig i ffermio Cymru, ond i ffermio'r byd mewn gwirionedd, a wneud yn saff bod ni'n gallu cyrraedd sialensau yma ar gyfer y dyfodol, ond hefyd ar yr un pryd cynhyrchu bwyd ar gyfer poblogaeth y byd. A mae'n dda o beth cael gweud yw dyma un o'r llefydd gorau yn y byd, sef Cymru, i gynhyrchu bwyd mewn ffordd cynaladwy. Felly ni'n dechrau mewn sefyllfa gref iawn, ond mae yna waith eto i'w wneud. Felly dwi'n credu bod mae'r gwaith yma yn mynd i fod yn sicr yn rhywbeth blaengar iawn yn waith hybu i Cymru yn y dyfodol, a mae rhaid i'r diwydiant i wneud saff bod ni ar flaen y gad yn hermau cadw'r hyn sydd yn bwysig i ni, yng Nghyfan Gwlad Cymru. Nawr te, so ai at y ffilm gyntaf de, please, cyn na i ofyn i Rachel i ddweud gair am y gwaith yma. Diolch.
If you look at the sustainable manner in which red meat is produced in Wales, we enhance the environment, we have tremendous rainfall, we have a tremendous range of pasture land, which is rich in herbs and clovers, and that gives a great natural taste to the meat. And not only that, we've had our carbon tested in our soils, and we've done about 6 fields, and we have between 90 and 100 tonnes of carbon stored per hectare, which is a great story in sustainability. And if that pasture land is maintained through production of beef and lamb, and if you multiply that up across the family farms in Wales, we have got one huge carbon store. That's got to be a great story moving forward, and a fantastic asset for the whole of Wales, really.
So as we climb through the land of the farm, really, we come to this heather moorland, which is 100 acres, and blanket bog here. And we are more and more aware of our carbon footprint, really. So this is one place where we can make a difference, really. So we try to keep this area as wet as possible, so we're not opening any ditches. Of course, we're closing, on the contrary, any ditches, really. So the water is stored up here. So an element of flood prevention happens here as well. And then, of course, the actual habitat is important as well. So we've agreed through the Glastir's environmental scheme to graze cattle here. It keeps a variety as far as the size of the heather is concerned, so that the birds can have nesting habitats. They need some clear spaces and then some shelter as well.
We farm using traditional and modern farming methods. So the environment is really important to farmers in this area. We need the environment to farm, but also the environment needs us to look after it and to be sort of ambassadors then. There's lots of different wild species of flowers and lots of wildlife on the farms, so it's really important to look after that. And we do that by using special grazing techniques and sort of farming in an environmentally friendly way.
I might be biased, but I mean, I can definitely taste the difference in, grass-fed, natural beef. But again, I think it is recognised in, restaurants, and chefs do recognise it as a really special meat.
The only way that we can turn the grassland of Wales into food that people can eat is by grazing it with ruminants, beef and sheep. So we need to persuade the public that they can support sustainable farming in the marketplace by buying the beef and lamb products that we grow. If we are to reverse the declining sales of red meat, we have to tell an honest and transparent story to consumers, and we have a very good story to tell. Welsh grassland farmers are carbon stewards. They're looking after the carbon in the soil bank. But we need to get that message across that by eating red meat from sustainable grassland systems in Wales, consumers can be part of the solution. In order to do that, we need to differentiate between the grass-fed and mainly grass-fed livestock products which are part of the solution and those other livestock systems which are actually part of the problem.
Great, lovely. Diolch, Gwyn, and thank you. That was for everyone for viewing that video. And I'm hoping that you'll all agree that it's a really good representation of Welsh agriculture and of Welsh red meat production. And I think what I want that video to illustrate is the fact that we're starting from a really good place. And I think that's really important that we all sort of hold on to that we get that, and that is a really key message, that the way we produce red meat here in Wales is great, and we're starting from a really strong position. What we did a couple of years ago is we produced a really sort of quite profound document. It sort of really flew the flag in terms of food production, and actually no one else has sort of done it. So we produced a document called The Welsh Way back in 2020. As I said, no one else had anything similar at the time. It had really good coverage, really good press interest, and actually we're still talking about it today. It's still being picked up. We still got interest in that document, because what it said is actually that Wales is one of the most sustainable places on earth to produce red meat, and that's really key. What we did sort of 12 months after that initial document is we had a farmer sort of iteration where it was about perfecting the Welsh way. So although we're in a great place, actually there's always places for improvement. We can be more efficient. We can be more environmentally sustainable. And that document just built upon what we already started, but actually really had a farmer focus in terms of where we can get. Now, reflecting on what Gwyn had said in his sort of introduction, sort of setting out the challenges ahead, I can't stress enough the challenges that we face as an industry. Everyone would be in agreement with me there. We've got some profound challenges ahead, but actually we've got some really exciting opportunities, and I think absolutely got to grasp, and it's ours to, for the take. And that's where I think, although we're in a really good position, it's really important that we really focus in terms of what the future needs and what we need to be prepared to do as an industry. And what that future looks like, it means that we have to really sort of improve our data collection in terms of our environmental credentials. So the Welsh way, it demonstrated an indicative sample, and it gave an expression, an idea of how we farm in Wales and how sustainable it is. But actually we need to build upon that data set. We need to make sure that we are evidence driven, that we're data driven, and actually we need to underpin our brands, our Welsh brands, with that data. And that's really important, because the challenge will be going forward is we will need to prove these things that we know as farmers, that we feel on a day-to-day basis, that we see, we know we're doing a good job, but actually we need more than that. We need data to really sort of underpin and strengthen that. And that's really important, that where we need to be in the future, because actually without that, our brands are weakened, and especially I think in terms of the global stage as well as our domestic markets. And that's really where we need to take things forward. And I think just a very quick final point for me, and actually if we don't grasp this as farmers, as an industry, actually someone else will. We've really got to own it, we've got to take it forward, and we've really got to release those opportunities. If there are any questions, feel free to pop them in the sort of the Q&A section now, or if you put them as we go along, I can pick them up later. That's not a problem. I don't think there are any questions at the minute, so I will hand over to my colleague, Laura Pickup, who is our Head of Strategic Marketing and Connections. Diolch.
Diolch, Rachel. Noswaith dda. Good evening, everybody. So yeah, my remit, as Rachel has just described, really falls broadly into two areas. The first is brand and consumer marketing, and the other is market access. And that's underpinned by corporate communications, which actually works across the whole of the organisation at HCC. So turning first of all to brand and consumer marketing, our main objectives are actually to make sure that we achieve a premium positioning for the Welsh Red Meat brands, your Welsh Red Meat brands, and then to use those brands to raise awareness, influence perception, and stimulate demand for Welsh Red Meat products, both in the UK and internationally. The reason that we seek to establish Welsh Red Meat brands as premium products are twofold, really. Firstly, it's really important that we have a point of difference, so that the Welsh Red Meat specifically is sought by consumers. Because if we don't do that, essentially what we're left with is a commodity product where we only have price to compete. And that's a kind of race to the bottom, which would really erode the value that's been created for the supply chain by the brands over the years. But of course, the flip side of that is that through premium positioning, we're not only giving retail and food service buyers a reason to identify red meat as Welsh at the point of sale, but it also means that we can achieve premium pricing on behalf of the entire supply chain. So in terms of how we achieve that premium positioning, the key really is to make sure that we ensure we have a value proposition that justifies that price premium that we're seeking. So essentially that just means a point of difference or something that sets us apart from other red meat brands in a way that adds value to the consumer so that they're prepared to pay that little bit extra. Traditionally, over the past kind of 20 years or so, we've done this really very much through provenance and provenance-based brands, which communicate the fact that Wales has the perfect landscape, wonderful climate and farming heritage, which all combines together to produce the very best tasting lamb and beef. And that's served us extremely well over the years. We know that we have brands that are very well established with consumers and trade alike. And we see that really in the fact that we occupy the premium tiers in retail in the UK. We're in high-end food service accounts in the UK and overseas, and high-value export markets as well. But consumer demand drivers do obviously change. And it's vital then that our proposition or our point of difference changes in line with those demand drivers so that we do continue to be the brand of choice and command that all-important price premium on behalf of the supply chain. So as we just heard from Rachel and Gwyn before her, sustainability is vitally important now, both in terms of trade and consumer demand drivers. And that's only going to become really increasingly important as things progress. And that's true of all sectors really, not just our own red meat sector, but all sectors where we're seeing major brands embedding sustainability and environmental values into their brands. And we need to do the same for Welsh red meat, putting our hard-earned and again, to Rachel's point, data-driven and absolutely authentic green credentials front and center of our brands and our consumer-facing campaigns. Because again, if we don't do that, someone else will occupy that space and give consumers a reason to select them over and above ourselves. So the challenge going forward for us really is to evolve from a purely provenance-based brand into a purpose-driven brand, carrying all of those good things that we're already well known for: taste, versatility, good quality, eating quality, and embedding sustainability and all the good things that we can do on behalf of the environment and our rural communities into our brands as well. And then, of course, once we've done that, we need to communicate that. But rather than me describe what we do in terms of marketing, I'm going to pause for breath and ask Owen to play a short film for you, which is an amalgamation and a montage of some of the content that we've created for digital platforms, events that we've been to, that really promotes both Welsh lamb and Welsh beef brands. So if we're able to see that, that's great. great, thank you. So yeah, that's just a few examples really of some of the content that we've created for our digital marketing platforms, which sort of focuses around recipe inspiration, sustainability messaging, and health and education, and red meat as being part of a healthy, balanced diet. And we put that out on our social media, which has collectively 100,000 followers, hundreds of thousands of people per year visiting our website. And of course, that's supported by PR and in-store activity as well, which John will likely cover off when he speaks. But one thing I did particularly want to pick out of that really is some of the work that we do specifically in health and education. So that kind of industry defence and advocacy piece of work is critically important strand of the work that we do, you know, in the face of all of the misinformation that's being thrown at us by, you know, alternative meatless protein products, etc. So we know that that's not evidence-based, and what our role is to make sure that we're getting fact-based, factual information out to consumers, and we do that, as you've just seen, through our consumer campaigns, but also we have a dedicated member of our team, Elwen Roberts, who some of you may know, who does wonderful work in consumer events, but she also works with health professionals and teachers, so that she can educate those that have access to large amounts of people that need this type of information, so patients going through doctor surgeries and nurses, and young people as they grow up via teachers, making sure they have the correct information about the vital importance of red meat in a healthy, balanced diet. And like I say, she does that through attending events, working directly with schools, working directly with health professionals, as well as we have a range of resources, both online and in hard copy, recipe booklets for all ages, fact sheets for all ages. And we supplement that, of course, by working proactively with our other levy body, or with other levy bodies, to make sure that we're consistently debunking some of those myths with positive communications about the benefit of Welsh red meat. So the final thing really that I wanted to cover off today is the market access work that we do. We all know how vitally important export is, not only in terms of carcass balance, but just generally driving prices. And of course, we have a number of established export markets where we're already active and the brand is already well known. Europe, Scandinavia, Far East, Middle East, and I'm sure John will cover some of that off in his section of this evening's webinar. But of course, there are also plenty of markets that we don't currently have access to for a variety of reasons, many of which can be extremely lucrative for our industry. So over the years, HCC has worked tirelessly in partnership with other levy bodies and UK government and Welsh government to gain access to these new lucrative markets on behalf of the Welsh red meat industry. And there have been some big wins over the years. Most recently, of course, is the access that we've just gained to the USA. So we have 2 Welsh plants already approved, and in fact, they were the first to be approved. So the first British meat to touch down in the States was Welsh red meat. But of course, these markets don't just open up overnight. And in fact, I was actually involved in the delegation that went out to Washington some 10 years ago to visit the USDA and get the ball rolling, and then instigate the reciprocal inward mission that followed from the authorities in the States. And since then, there's obviously been a huge amount of work by a lot of different people, form filling and inspection visits to get that market access and plant approval over the line, particularly given it's not part of a trade deal. And that's going to be crucially important. I think research will indicate that this is a market that will be worth, you know, tens of millions to the Welsh red meat industry over a number of years. And of course, it will take time to develop. So yeah, HCC will obviously continue to work proactively to open up further new high value markets for Welsh red meat, so that we can continue to diversify into even more high value markets, which will allow us to command a price premium and of course spread our risk. Targets going forward include China, Taiwan, who had a recent audit visit over to the UK back in September, South Korea, Egypt and Oman, which are all big lamb-consuming countries and include, of course, many halal markets. And that halal market will only become more important for us in the future as the market becomes even more sophisticated and premium tiers are sought out by the halal market also. But of course, once those markets are open, there's market development work to be done. And so by way of segue into John Parker's presentation, and John is our head of supply chain delivery, I'm going to ask Owen to play a short film which covers off a number of the market development activities that we've delivered both in the UK trade, retail trade, food service and export markets over the years, and then it will be over to John.
Morjens, mun nimi on Sami Hakamäki. Tänään kokataan lampaanlihaa. Meillä olisi tuossa ulkofile ja niin kuin kuvasta näkyy, niin kesä on tullut ja se olisi tarkoitus näkyä myös lautasella.
Salve a tutti, sono Francesco Mazzei, sono uno chef italiano in Inghilterra con 3 ristoranti bellissimi e oggi parliamo della spalla di agnello gallese.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura, for handing over with that video there. I'm John Parker. I'm head of supply chain at HCC. And as Laura highlighted there, that video covered part of what the supply chain delivery team delivers for HCC to industry. So really what supply chain delivery is doing is we're providing the on-the-ground support to industry, to the broad supply chain from farm through the processors, butchers, retailers up to point of sale. So that's a broad description of the work we undertake, and the video that Laura introduced there really covers the export side of it. In terms of the marketing and some of the examples of the marketing that we undertake in the countries that we target through celebrity chefs, through those who work in the trade, ambassadors who support the brands in those target markets. So by way of some examples, as has been highlighted there by Laura, a recent activity in Qatar, in Doha, around the World Cup, where we undertook an event with buyers and dignitaries at the British Embassy, to highlight Welsh lamb and its properties and its provenance to those operating in the market in the food service and the hospitality sector, and really to engage and learn how the Middle East market is developing, and as Laura highlighted, a very important halal market that's becoming more sophisticated in terms of how people buy within those markets in terms of premium products across the Middle East. So it was really good to meet face to face in those markets and hear firsthand where the opportunities lie across the Middle East region. Laura mentioned the US. We'll be delivering a package of activity in the US, specifically dedicated to Welsh lamb, and that activity will take place in the next few weeks and run through till March, really taking the messaging that we want to convey for Welsh lamb into that market, targeting specific areas of the US where we believe that consumption will be most prominent for our Welsh red meat products. Back in Europe, our staple markets across Europe, and you saw one of our Finnish chefs there on the video promoting for us. So from Scandinavia all the way down through to Spain, we recently had a delegation of butchers from Italy as part of quite a broad package of activity that will take place over the last few weeks and the coming few weeks with retailers and food service operatives in Italy. So that was an inward mission that took place just a few weeks ago to promote our farmers and our processors within that market and to key buyers. The one thing I wanted to mention as well with regard to supply chain is our work in public procurement. That's a theme that's been brought up throughout these Levy consultations, and the importance of ensuring that the messages with regard to red meat and sustainability and how they tie into the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act in Wales and the goals of that act, and how we can utilise that and draw everything together under the sustainable messaging for Welsh lamb and Welsh beef to support public procurement and to support decision making within public bodies in Wales to purchase Welsh PGI red meat. So beyond that, within the supply chain team, then we also have our really at farm level, the work that we undertake directly with the sector at farm level that's been focused for the last 4 to 5 years around the Red Meat Development Programme, which has been a £9.2 million programme that's delivered across 3 different themes in terms of Stock Plus, the Hill Ram scheme that's focused on genetic improvement, and the Red Meat Eating Quality project that's focused on lamb. So before I go any further on that, if our host Owen can play the next video for us so you can learn a little bit more about that, that'll be great.
Mae'r sector cig coch yn hanfodol bwysig I ni yn Cymru. Mae'n cefnogi swyddi, yr economi a'r diwylliant cefn-gwlad. Dyn ni wedi dewis y 3 elfen i'r prosiect yma, achos dyn ni gweld bod nhw'n hanfodol bwysig I sicrhau fel cynhyrchiad cig coch yn Gymru. Mae'r 2 elfen sy'n edrych arno beth sy'n digwydd ar y fferm, a wrth gwrs mae'r 3ydd elfen yn edrych ar beth mae'r cwsmer yn mwynhau fwyta a hefyd safon y cig dyn ni'n cynhyrchu. Mae'r economi cefn gwlad yng Nghymru wedi cael ei sylfaenu arno sector cig coch cryf sy'n proffidiol, a mae hwnna'n hynod bwysig i ni. Wedyn mae'r rhaglen yma yn mynd i edrych i datblygu hyn yn bellach a sicrhau fod nhw'n dyfodol ddisglair i ni fel diwydiant cyfan yng Nghymru.
Consumer taste panels, we hope to gain further insight into why consumers purchase Welsh lamb. We ask them about their previous experience when it comes to buying Welsh lamb, and we ask them also then to rate the product quality.
I thought it was really good. I learned a lot about Welsh lamb that I didn't think I'd know. And I really enjoyed the experience. I think very educational.
I've been buying my meat from my local butcher for 35 years, so he's very interested in sustainability, its traceability, which is very important to me as well.
At each of the taste panels across the 5 years of the project, every lamb sample that the consumers have will be cooked the same. It's cooked to the MSA method using a Silex grill, and there is a time for that lamb sample to be cooked on the grill to make sure there is consistent eating quality of the lamb.
It was quite like an eye-opening because tasting food is the best way to learn, in my opinion.
I never used to eat lamb because I never really liked it when I was a child, but after coming today it's really changed my mind.
So what we find then is that the whole of the red meat sector is really interested in finding out more about these results from the project. We've got fantastic results coming through so far, not only with the consumer taste panel research that we're doing and the meat eating quality research, but also the nutritional benefits that we're finding with lamb as well. It's a fantastic product, it's sustainable, and we're looking at ways then that we can educate consumers further and to empower them to buy more Welsh lamb.
Great, thank you for that. So you saw at the end of that video there, the team, John Richards, Levy, Elizabeth, at the meat quality trials. Now, the last of those trials is taking place right now, actually, in Wrexham Rugby Club, which is trial 4. The first 2 of the trials are complete. The third is being reported on at the moment, and trial 4 is looking at hanging method, muscle cut and packaging, and their effects on taste within lamb. So all of the results of that eating quality project and the Stock Plus and Hill Lamb scheme, as a project comes to an end now, then all of the information from this activity will be published for everyone to consume within the sector and read and digest and to take forward, because as has been discussed this evening, we are developing the red meat brands further, as Laura mentioned, purpose-driven brands, and eating quality is really a core part of that. That's something that we want to promote. So the results from the RMDP, from the Red Meat Development Programme project on the eating quality, we really want to build these characteristics that we found into the research, into the marketability of Welsh red meat products, alongside the work that Rachel was talking about earlier as well with regard to sustainability. So in terms of supply chain and moving forward, then taking a whole supply chain approach from farm to point of sale, we want to try and deliver meaningful programs as we have done for industry, and that's something that we look forward to doing across the teams, Laura and Rachel and myself, as we move forward. So that's enough from me, I think. And what I will do now, I can't see any questions in the Q&A box. So what I will do is I will move back to Gwyn, our Chief Executive, and Gwyn will take us through the detail of the discussion that we're having on the levy. So I'll hand over to you, Gwyn.
Thank you, John. Diolch, John. Ni wedi cael gobeithio amser eitha diddorol yn gwrando ar yr ystod eang o weithgaredd ni wedi gwneud ar eich rhan chi dros yr cyfnod diwethaf yma, ac yn bwysig iawn beth yw'r gwaith a'r gweithgaredd sydd i'w ddod yn y dyfodol sydd yn bwysicach byth wrth gwrs i werthu brandiau Cymru i bobl y byd mewn gwirionedd i ennill yn plwy yn fwy yn y farchnad gystadleuol sydd ohoni. Felly i ddod at pen y modwl mewn gwirionedd i droi at yr hyn sydd o dan ymgynghoriad a'r bwriad heno i edrych ar y Levy. Wrth gwrs, does byth amser da i godi'r Levy. Dyw e byth yn gyfnod da o ran y diwydiant, a felly i ni wedi gweld dros yr degawdau diwethaf yma, fel o'n i sôn yn y cychwyn gyntaf, yr codiad diwethaf yn 2011 ac cyn ni ddegawd ynghynt ar drwyad y ganrif 2001. A felly, mae 12 mlynedd wedi mynd heibio, a oedd y bwrdd rheoli a glwn i cath mewn munud yn cloriannu yr noswaith yn teimlo'n gryf iawn bod angen i'r diwydiant gael cydnabyddiaeth o'r heriau oedd o flaen y diwydiant a'r heriau o flaen Hybugu Cymru ar ei rhan nhw, a bod felly angen i gael ymgynghoriad a sgwrs yn sicr fan lleia ar ddyfodol y Levy a'r ffïoedd ar gyfer y dyfodol. A wrth gwrs mae hwn yn un o gyfres o gyfarfodydd ni wedi cael ar draws Cymru yn ddiweddar iawn, a bydd yna rai cyfarfodydd eto i ddod rhwng nawr a ganol y mis pan bydd y ymgynghoriad yn gorffen yn swyddogol. O ran y broses, mae'n bwysig bod ni'n sôn am broses, gan bod ni'n gorff statudol ac yn atebol ar un llaw i'r diwydiant sydd yn talu'r Levy, sef y ffermwyr a'r proseswyr y lladdau, ac ar y llaw arall wrth gwrs i'r gweinidog sydd ar portffolio ar gyfer amaethyddiaeth a chefen gwlad. A felly mae'n bwysig bod ni'n ymgynghori ar unrhyw newidiadau statudol sydd ynghlwm wrth y Levy. A wedyn y broses yn gryno iawn yw bydd yr ymgynghoriad a'r sgwrs mewn parhau tan ganol y mis, a wedyn bydd yr gwybodaeth ni wedi cael nôl yn cael ei gloriannu a'i gyflwyno i'r bwrdd rheoli yn mis Ionawr. A wedyn o hynny ymlaen, yn dibynnu ar y gwybodaeth ddawn nôl yn yr ymgynghoriad, bydd y gyngor yn cael ei roi i'r gweinidog ar ôl hynny yn mis Chwefror, fel bod unrhyw newid, os fydd yna newid, yn cael ei gyflwyno yn mis Ebrill 2023. Dyma'r broses sy'n ni'n sôn am ydy. A mae'n bwysig iawn bod fi yn sôn am broses. A un o'r pethau sydd lan yn y cyfarfodydd dros ledled Cymru yn wir yw mae'r ymgynghoriad yma yn dra gwahanol i'r rhai ni wedi wneud dros y degawdau. Dros y degawdau, ni wedi mynd at y diwydiant a gweud, wel, ni'n mynd i cael codiad Levy ers degawd, a felly beth ni wedi wneud yn y gorffennol yn y tair gwaith yn ôl mewn gwirionedd yw codi'r Levy yn swm sylweddol, rhyw 25%. Ond cais grau chi dim dyna'r bwriad ar gyfer y tro hyn. Y bwriad tro hyn yw gofyn am geiniogau yn ytrach na swm sylweddol o 25%. Ac un o'r rhesymau penna dros hynny, ar yr ymgynghoriad diwethaf yn 2011, un o'r pethau doedd trwyddo'n glir iawn oddi wrth y ffermwyr yn enwedig, a'r lladdau i raddau hefyd, i gweud, wel, pidiwch y garlu yn rhy hir i ddod nôl ato ni i gael codiad tro nesaf, newch e'n raddol bach os gallwch chi. Wel, wnaethon ni ddim cymryd digon o sylw falle ar y pryd o'r awgrym hynna, ond mae'n rhywbeth oedd yn yr arfaith gyda ni ers hynny, bod os bydden ni'n dod nôl i'r diwydiant, a ni wedi trial osgoi dod nôl at y diwydiant gymaint a gallwn ni, a mae 12 mlynedd yn amser iawn, hir iawn, a teimlo fel soniais i bod hi'n anodd iawn osgoi'r pwnc mwyach. Ond ni ddim yn chwilio am yr cyfraniad a'r naid sylweddol yna. Felly beth ni'n sôn am byti nawr yw cael proses i ddilyn chwyddiant. A cyn bod ni'n dod nôl ato hwnna, fi'n credu sy'n ni'n gallu cael Gwpl o slides, falle, Owain, i roi'r cyd-destun beth yw'r Levy nawr, falle, a mae hynny'n bwysig iawn. Felly, os gobeithio bod chi gyd yn gallu gweld eich sgrin, felly dyma'r cyfraddau Levy fel y maen nhw ar hyn o bryd. So, mae'r Levy yn cael ei rannu, mae dwy garfan yn rhannu yn talu'r Levy, sef yr ffarmwr a'r lladdau, a wedyn mae'r split rhwng y ddau yna yn cael ei ddangos ar y tabl yna. So, yn erbyn Cigoen neu David sy'n mynd i'r gadwyn gyflenwi yng Nghymru, 83 ceiniog yw e, 63 yn cael ei dalu gyda'r ffarmwr a 20 ceiniog yn cael ei dalu gan y lladddy. Arwyth tebyg yn hermau Cigeidion, 5.67 yw'r cyfanswm, 4.34 o geinogau yn cael ei dalu gyda'r ffarmwr a 1.33 o geinogau gyda'r lladdau. A wedyn os oes ffermwyr moch, mae'r gyfradd yn 30 ceiniog yn hermau mochyn a'r dosraniad yn 5 ceiniog a 5 ceiniog ar 20 gan y lladddy. Felly mae'r Levy'n cael ei dalu yn rhannol. A'r split real yn iawn yw just 75% sy'n chwarter gyda'r ffermwyr a 25% neu chwarter arall gyda'r lladdau. Levy'n cael ei godi gan Hybu Cymru yn mhob lladddy sydd yn lladd anifeiliaid ar gyfer gadwyn gyflenwi a'r wartheg defyd a moch. A wrth gwrs yn cyfrifoldeb ni yw godi ar ran y gweinidogion ac wedyn i wario fe a'i fuddsoddi ar ran y diwydiant. Felly eich buddsoddiad chi fel ffermwyr a lladdau yw'r arian i'w gael i wario lles y diwydiant yn hermau y gadwyn gyflenwi gyfan o'r ffermwyr i'r lladdau ac yn benna oll falle ar gyfer y brandiau sydd â ni yng Nghymru, Cigoen a Chigeidion o Gymru a Chig moch sydd wedi cael ei fagu yng Nghymru. Felly dyna'r buddsoddiad a dyna'r blas i chi wedi cael ar y gwaith ni wedi wneud yn y gorffennol a'r gwaith eto i'w wneud yn y dyfodol. Os yw'n ni mlaen, Owen, plis i'r ymgynghoriad a'r cynnig bron falle byddwn ni'n gweud. Felly, beth ni'n gobeithio wneud nawr, edrych ar mynd am un naid anferthol yw codi yn raddol bach. A'r awgrym a'r cynnig bron yw bod ni'n gallu codi ar gyfer y flwyddyn nesaf, 23-24, a bydd hynny'n dibynnu yn union falle ar y gyfradd chwyddiant yn y flwyddyn gyfredol 22, ac mae'r ffigur yma wedi cael ei pennu tan diwedd mis Medi, ond mae wedi codi beth o ddiar hynny, so mae'r 900 nawr. Ond y bwriad yw codi y cyfraddau, a mae'r enghreifftiau yna yn glir o'ch blaen chi fyna, so bydde'r gyfradd a'r wartheg yn codi 38 ceiniog i'r ffermwyr, 12 ceiniog i'r lladdau, cynhyrmech Cigoen a defaid, bydde fe'n 6 ceiniog ac yn 2 ceiniog i dalu gyda'r lladdau, ac yn erbyn moch 9 ceiniog a 2 ceiniog. Felly, teimlo oedd y bwrdd bod yn decach i wneud fel un, fel bod ni hefyd yn gallu cael sicrhau bod ni gorff sydd yn gallu bod yn gynaladwy ar gyfer y gwaith sydd ger bron yn y dyfodol, a mae hynny'n bwysig iawn. Felly, i gloriannu, dyw byth yn amser da iawn, ond gobeithio bydd y diwydiant yn gweld yn dda bod angen cymryd y cam anodd yma nawr, ond mae yn amserol i'w gymryd yn sicr yn hermau y gwaith sydd i'w wneud ar gyfer y dyfodol. Os oes yna gwestiynau i gael ar y Levy, dwi mwy na yn barod i'w hateb nhw. Dwi'n yn gallu gweld yr un ar y funud, ond dwi wedi cael un ddoth mewn yn genharach yn hermau beth oedd yn mynd i ddigwydd o bosib yn hermau y cyfraddau Levy yn Lloegr ac yn yr Alban. fel bob tro arall i ni bach ar flaen y gad yn Herbau Cymru. Yn sicr i ni'n ymgynghori nawr ac yn nealltwriaeth i yw fydd Lloegr yn ymgynghori yn y misoedd nesaf yma ar Alban rhywbryd ar eu hole nhw, gan bod y cyrff hynny hefyd yn gweld bod hi'n amserol i godi'r lefi gan bod cryn amser wedi mynd heibio a bod angen bod ni gyrff cymarol gryf i gael i lanw'r bylchau a'r heriau sydd o'n blaenau ni, a un o'r pethau yn sicr soniodd Rachel amdani nhw ac yn wir Laura yw bod yr heriau yn amrywiol iawn ac yn gryf iawn o'n nerfau gallu ogi sicrhau bod yna mateb i gael ymhlith y diwydiant i'r rhai sydd yn fodlon ac yn bwriadu dilorni'r diwydiant, a mae hynny'n bwysig iawn o'n gwaith ni hefyd yn ogystal â herio'r brandiau yw ni'n saff bod neb yn gwneud cam ar diwydiant ci coch ar ffordd o gynhyrchu yng Nghymru. Dwi'n yn gweld llawer o mwy o gwestiynau yn hytrach na'r un yna. Felly, gobeithio bod ni wedi cloriannu'r hyn sydd gyda ni mewn sylw yn weddol glir. Dwi'n credu i ni'n rhoi cynnig i bobl Owen, os fydd na gwestiynau yn dod i'r fei ac yn dod i'r meddwl ar ôl y cyfarfod yma, bod na gyfle i osod y cwestiynau yna i Hybu Cymru am a dylai fod na ffordd da ni'n neud hynny. Owen, a mae'n dod ar y sgrin nawr, so os oes sylwadau pellach da chi. If you've got further comments and questions that you'd like to ask us after this meeting, the email address is on the screen. Mae'r cyfeiriad ar y sgrin nawr. Felly, heb mwy o oedi, dwi'n mynd i rannu y sgrin gyda Catherine Smith yn cadeirydd ni nawr i ddod ar cyfarfod i ben. Catherine, diolch.
Diolch, Gwyn, and diolch yn fawr to all of the team at HCC involved not just in presenting this evening, but involved in putting a webinar such as tonight's together. It takes a lot of teamwork, and I'm very grateful to everybody for playing their part. I'd also like to thank you all sincerely for joining us on the call this evening, and also those who've taken time to join us and attend the events that have been held around Wales so far. There are more events to come talking to industry stakeholders, and we look forward to that engagement as well. We value the time that you have taken to join in the conversation, ask questions and to make contributions. And all of those comments and contributions will help us as a board to inform the advice that we give to the Minister in January of next year. As Gwyn said, if you would like to make a direct contribution following this evening's webinar, I'd really encourage you to do so by going to the email link that was displayed on the screen, so as we can actually capture all of your comments and queries and feed that into the conversation that we're having. It's my pleasure to draw this evening to a close, and as I do so, I'm reminded of Patrick Holden's words in the first video that was played, that we need to tell our honest, transparent and positive story to our consumers, both at home and abroad. And a sufficiently funded levy body can and will deliver just that, not just for our levy payers, but also for our supply chain, our rural communities, and will deliver for the people of Wales, both today and in the future. So thank you again for your time this evening. Thank you for your engagement, and I formally bring this evening to a close. Thank you all.